So, as was promised in the last mock draft, March Madness has come and gone, and because of that, it's once again time to bring out the latest update. The March Madness tournament always brings craziness and excitement to the sporting world, and year after year is one of the most entertaining events held. But on top of that, we also tend to see players break out and establish themselves as legitimate NBA prospects because of their terrific play. As always, the order that the teams will be picking in this mock draft are based on current NBA standings, so I don't have any say in the matter. Before we start though, it turns out about 65% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Starting things off with the number 1 pick in the draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Cade Cunningham from Oklahoma State. Cunningham finished his year posting impressive averages of 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists per game while shooting the ball 40% from 3, and in most cases, he proved that the areas of concern in his game before the season weren't really things to be that concerned about at all. Admittedly, he didn't have the strongest showing in the world in March Madness, but it wasn't bad enough by any means to shake my confidence in him as a top-tier prospect for the next level. His size, shot creation, playmaking, and versatility will be a big prize for whatever team lands the top pick, and right now the Minnesota Timberwolves, with the worst record, are in the driver's seat to get it. Next up, with the second pick in the draft, the Houston Rockets select Evan Mobley from USC. Mobley had a tremendous March Madness performance, showing off everything that the NBA scouts have been salivating over with his potential. Defensively, he's as elite as they come as a big man, not only because of his rim protection, but because he's mobile and agile enough to comfortably hold his own out on the perimeter as well. Offensively, he's highly skilled around the rim, he finishes strong at the basket, and he's got a nice soft touch. He operates very well in the pick and roll, he has a steadily improving jumper, and honestly, he brings everything that teams in the NBA today want from their center manning the middle. In fact, I'm comfortable saying that he'll definitely be at least in consideration by some teams to be taken number 1 overall. That's how close he and Cade Cunningham are as prospects. The Rockets may already have Christian Wood, but Mobley's versatile enough that he could slide right in alongside him in the front court and still elevate the team. Next up, with the third pick in the draft, the Detroit Pistons select Jalen Suggs from Gonzaga. Suggs had the moment of the tournament when he hit a half-court shot for the win in the Final Four, and even though Gonzaga lost the championship, Suggs showed more than enough to convince people that he is the truth. He's the ultimate competitor that tries to do whatever the team needs for him to get a win, and on both ends of the floor, he's very well balanced. He plays with an edge and embraces big moments, he's fiery and competitive, and he willingly does the little things winning teams need. For a Pistons team that started from scratch this season in their rebuild, Suggs would be the perfect piece to add to that equation, giving them a leader and a strong foundation to build around for the future. Next, with the fourth pick in the draft, the Orlando Magic select Jalen Green from G League Ignite. Green could potentially be the best scorer in the draft this year, and he proved that in the G League this season. He may not have gotten to take part in March Madness, but competing against grown men at the professional level on a regular basis is undoubtedly going to help him translate to the NBA. He scored over 20 points in over half the games he played in the G League this year, showing how natural putting the ball in the basket comes to him, and his combination of explosive athleticism and shot creation would be valuable to any team. He does need to improve his three-point shooting to truly be a great scorer, as he was kind of inconsistent from beyond the arc this season, but overall there's a lot to like about him. Next up, with the fifth pick in the draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers select Jonathan Kuminga from G League Ignite. Kuminga was Green's teammate in the G League, and together, they both looked very comfortable and impressive considering the leap they made in terms of the competition that they were facing. Kuminga has an NBA-ready body with the strength and size to seamlessly step into an NBA lineup and produce, and projects as a solid two-way player because of his defense. Oddly enough, his three-point shooting is also what could separate him from being a good player or a great player, but with that being said, he's still easily a top 5 prospect in the class. Next up, with the 6th pick in the draft, the Washington Wizards select Davion Mitchell from Baylor. Yes, Mitchell was easily the biggest winner of the March Madness tournament in my eyes after helping lead Baylor to winning the championship, and he's also the biggest riser in terms of draft stock as a result. Mitchell was a very solid player all season long, and without his March Madness tournament, he still would have been a first-round pick, but after being viewed as potentially someone who could translate to being an impact sub off the bench at the NBA level, I'm now fully convinced that he could be a starter in any team's lineup at the shooting guard position and help improve the team. He's easily the best perimeter defender in the draft, and his tenacious defense pesters opposing ball handlers into terrible performances, and offensively, he put on a show all March Madness. He scores the ball incredibly efficiently, making 52% of his shots and 45% of his threes this season. He's crafty off the dribble, he finishes strong at the basket, and he can comfortably handle secondary playmaking duties in the backcourt. Up next, with the 7th pick in the draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Keon Johnson from Tennessee. Johnson is probably the biggest project this high up in the draft, as he didn't really post impressive production on the season, but he did show flashes of his supreme athleticism while still being very raw regarding his skill set. He's been compared to Jaylen Brown by some, and while I'm not saying he's going to end up as good as Brown is now, the potential is certainly there. The Thunder have an entire treasure chest of draft picks at their disposal, so they can take risky swings on high-ceiling prospects like this, and if it works out in their favor, then their rebuild will continue to be on the right track. Next up, with the 8th pick in the draft, the Toronto Raptors select James Bouknight from UConn. Bouknight played unbelievably well early on in the season, but unfortunately an elbow injury slowed him down, and when he returned to the court after the injury, his production took a bit of a dip. He never really looked fully healthy afterwards, which would scare some off, but at full strength, he was a phenomenal playmaker with the ball in his hands, and I think NBA teams will see that in him without worrying too much about his struggles while he was playing through an injury. Up next, with the 9th pick in the draft, the Sacramento Kings select Moses Moody from Arkansas. Moody is still only 18 years old, being one of the youngest players in the draft, but he's probably the best 3-and-D prospect in the draft, with potential to be much more. He's got the length and build to defend multiple positions, he plays good team defense in the sense that he'll always be where the team needs him to be, and he can actively make plays on that end, and he shoots the ball very well from the perimeter, making him a player with a pretty safe floor, and in terms of need, that's one area that the Sacramento Kings could definitely bolster. Next up, with the 10th pick in the draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select Corey Kispert from Gonzaga. Kispert disappointed me a little bit in the tournament as he finished the year on a cold streak, disappearing at times in big moments, but objectively, he is still likely the best shooter in the draft, and that kind of skill set will always have value at the next level. He does need to improve defensively, but the Pelicans need shooting around Zion Williamson, and Kispert brings that exactly. Up next, with the 11th pick in the draft, the Orlando Magic, who own the Chicago Bulls pick, select Jalen Johnson from Duke. Johnson's season at Duke definitely didn't go as planned at all, with the team struggling more than it had in a very long time, combined with Johnson's production being very inconsistent. It led to him actually cutting his own season short, choosing to drop out and focus on training for the draft rather than finish the year out. His stock has definitely fallen a bit after all of this went down, but he still is worth a swing in the lottery because of his terrific size, athleticism, and playmaking for a player at his position. Next, with the 12th pick in the draft, the Indiana Pacers select Franz Wagner from Michigan. Wagner's a balanced, well-rounded player who can be used as a bit of a connector in a lineup, filling the gaps in a bunch of different areas. As a wing player with good size, he also brings smart decision-making and playmaking. He's a versatile team defender, and it's easy to see him fitting into almost any roster. His ceiling may not be as high as others in the draft, but his floor is much higher than most. Next up, with the 13th pick in the draft, the Golden State Warriors select Josh Giddey from the NBL. Giddey's one of the top international prospects currently playing in Australia, and as of late, has been playing some terrific basketball. He's recently said in an interview that he compares his game to Ben Simmons, and in the sense that he's a much bigger player that is comfortable handling the ball, making plays for those around him, filling up the stat sheet, and playing smart two-way basketball, there are definitely some similarities. He's still a bit raw, but at 18 years old, he's got a ton of potential. And finally, at pick number 14, to conclude the lottery, the San Antonio Spurs select Kai Jones from Texas. Jones is one of the most interesting prospects in the class who could be a high-risk, high-reward selection. His comfortability with the ball in his hands creating as a 7-foot player is tantalizing, but defensively he needs a ton of work. The Spurs have historically had tremendous development systems in place, so they could be a place that he goes to develop to the fullest. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who you want your favorite team to draft this year. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.